Doyle, leaning against an outside corner of the fish barn, was certain he'd walked over every foot of the whole scene during the course of the morning. He looked down with distaste at his basket of scrawny onions and wished he hadn't tried to allay his considerable hunger by eating one of them. He patted his pocket to make sure he hadn't lost the 4 pennies he'd earned. "Everything you make above 1 shilling you can keep," Chris had told him the last time Doyle and Sheila had stopped by the boat. "By now you must know the way of it, and you can do a few rounds all by yourself." And then he had handed Doyle a basket filled with what had to be the poorest-looking onions in the whole boatload, and sent him off in one direction and Sheila in another. The morbid girl hadn't been the best company, but he missed her now. And 1 shilling is 12 pennies, he thought hopelessly. I'll never even make that much with these wretched vegetables, much less any more, any bunt, as they call it, for myself. He levered himself away from the wooden wall and plodded away in the direction of the tower again, holding his basket in front of him. "Onions," he called half-heartedly. "Who'll buy these fine onions?" Sheila had taught him the litany. The coster's wagon, its bed empty, was rumbling past, and the evidently prosperous old fellow on the driver's seat looked down at Doyle and laughed. "Onions, you call those things, mate? I'd call 'em rat-tards." This brought merriment from the nearby members of the crowd, and a tough-faced boy ran up and nimbly kicked the bottom of Doyle's basket so that it flew up out of his hands, and the vegetables in question showered down around him. One thumped him on the nose, and the laughter doubled. The coster on the cart pursed his lips as though he hadn't quite intended to provoke all this. "You're a pitiful sod, ain't you?" he said to Doyle, who was just standing there dazedly watching the impromptu soccer with onions game the street boys had started up. "Here, take twice what they were worth. Here, damn you, wake up!" He dropped 2 pennies into the hand Doyle automatically held out, then goaded his horse forward. Doyle pocketed the coins and looked around. The crowd had lost interest in him. The onions, even the basket, were nowhere to be seen. No point going any further, he thought, and began trudging back toward the river in defeat.
"Ah, there's one of the dolorous brethren,"
piped a weird high voice like Mickey Mouse's.
"Just had his onions stomped into pavement soup, haven't you now, sir?"
Startled and embarrassed, Doyle looked up and saw that he was being addressed by a gaudily painted puppet in a tall booth that had even gaudier pictures of dragons and little men all over the front of it. There was a scanty audience of ragged boys and a few old bums squatted in front of it, and they laughed when the puppet crooked its arm beckoningly at Doyle.
"Come over and let old Punch cheer you up,"
it squeaked. Doyle shook his head, feeling himself blush, and kept walking, but the puppet added,
"Maybe I could tell you how to earn some real money, eh?" And
Doyle stopped. Eyes of some kind of gleaming crystal made the puppet actually seem to be staring at him. It beckoned again.
"What have you got to lose, your lordship?"
it asked in its bird-whistle voice.
"You've already been laughed at, and Punch never tries for an effect somebody else just got."
Doyle strode over to it, careful to keep a skeptical expression. Could the concealed puppeteer really be offering him employment? He couldn't afford not to check. Standing a couple of yards in front of the booth, he crossed his arms. "What have you got in mind, Punch?" he asked loudly.
"Ah!"
exclaimed the puppet, clapping its wooden hands.
"You're a foreigner. Excellent. But you can't talk to Punch till after the show. Sit down, please, your lordship."
It waved at the paving stones.
"Your box is being held for you and your companion."
Doyle glanced around. My companion?" he asked, feeling like the straight man in a comedy routine.
"Oh, yes,"
chirped the thing.
"I think I recognize Lady Ruin.
Doyle shrugged and sat down, pulling his cap lower over his eyes. "What the hell?" he thought. "I'm not supposed to be back at the boat until 11, and it can't even be 10:30 yet."
"Very well, then,"
exclaimed the puppet, straightening up and darting its lifelike gaze around the sparse and tattered assembly.
"Now that his lordship is finally arrived, we will commence the Dominion of Secret Glamour, or Punch's new opera."
A melancholy crank organ started up inside the narrow booth,